So the Final Four in New Orleans is now set. And I've just got to ask this. How many of you had Kansas, Duke, Villanova, and North Carolina? Just me? Okay. The 2022 NCAA Tournament has been wild, and then these past two rounds kind of stayed true to course. They provided some outcomes that no one really saw coming. So right now, I want to jump into a few winners and losers from March Madness in the Sweet 16 and the Elite Eight. And then eventually, here in the podcast, we're going to take a brief look at what we can expect in the Final Four and who might be playing on Championship Monday. But I'm going to give our first winner, and I'm going to give it to someone who hasn't played a single game and hasn't coached a game and hasn't really done anything except for make a whole bunch of money. Because I'm talking about the CBS television networks. Look, this tournament has been wild. It has been unpredictable. And yet, here we are with a number 1 seed in Kansas, two number 2 seeds in Villanova and Duke, and a number 8 seed in North Carolina. Now, the way we got here was weird, but if I just told you, here's the Final Four. It's Duke, Villanova, Kansas, North Carolina, you would have been like, okay, so the tournament just went chalk? Is that the 4 number 1 seeds? No, not at all. And yet, this tournament couldn't have worked out better for the TV networks. Duke versus North Carolina in the Final Four. Nova versus Kansas. They would have signed up for that faster than Rick Pitino at an Italian restaurant. But you know, it's funny because we love to see the Cinderellas every year, don't we? We love to see the Cinderellas. We love to see the upsets. We love to see Butler and George Mason and, St. Peter's this year. But let's be real honest. We only like to see them early. And then we kind of want the Blue Bloods to take back over when we get to the Final Four. Like the early rounds, oh yeah, the upsets are great. But if you had a Final Four this year that would have ended up with St. Peter's, Arkansas, Houston, and Providence, we would have all been like, what a crappy year college basketball was. There weren't even any powerhouses. Like, this was terrible. We want the Blue Bloods. We need those Blue Bloods. And if you don't agree, then I'm telling you this. You just can't handle the truth. I'm going to give out our first loser, though, and I'm going to give it to a group that a lot of us watched back in their prime, but I'm going to give a loser to the Fab Five out of Michigan, because the Michigan Wolverines had been placed into the bracket way too low at a number 11 seed. But then they had won 2 games. They had advanced to the Sweet 16. And as it often does, the winning that Michigan had done had soothed some old scars. Because the Fab Five has been fractured. There's been a lot of talk in the media. Chris Webber doesn't like Jalen Rose. And Jalen Rose, I don't know, doesn't talk to Jimmy King and Ray Jackson and is just trying to get a job or whatever. I don't know. But it seems like there has been some problems within the Fab Five. And a lot of the members of that Fab Five that were supposed to be so close, they wouldn't even talk. They wouldn't even get together, anything. They didn't want to have anything to do with each other. They had bitter, hurt feelings about whatever. But then Fab Five member Juwan Howard had gone back to Michigan. They had won some games. They were winning in the tournament. And we were starting to see Chris Webber and Jalen Rose. They were showing up to games. They were sitting courtside to watch the Michigan Wolverines. They were hugging and letting bygones be bygones. And you just know that the Fab Five was ready to make another run of popularity if Michigan could keep winning and maybe go as far as like the Final Four. And then they faced Villanova, and Villanova smacked the taste out of their mouth like they were Will Smith. And the Wolverines are sent home, and the Fab Five will probably now go back to sniping at each other in the media and hating each other's guts. And for that reason, the Fab Five gets a loser this week on The Dose. I'm going to give another winner. And if I'm being honest, this is probably the biggest winner of the entire tournament, at least to me, at least so far. And that winner goes to Duke head coach Mike Krzyzewski and his Duke Blue Devils program. We all know this is Coach K's final season. He is hoping to go out on top, but I want you to think about the road traveled for the Dukies this year. They have beaten in the tournament number 15 Cal State Fullerton. Okay. They beat number 7 Michigan State. Okay. They beat number 3 Texas Tech, probably their biggest test. And then they beat number 4 Arkansas. Hey, that's not exactly murderer's row. But wait, it gets better. Now, Duke gets a rematch with number 8 North Carolina, who beat them on their home floor in Coach K's final game in Durham. So they can get the ultimate revenge on North Carolina. And then they get either Villanova or Kansas, both very good teams, but both without a ton of depth. Hey, make no mistake, the table is absolutely set for Mike Krzyzewski to ride off into the sunset as a national champion. In fact, I'll go one step further. This will be the easiest path ever for Duke to win the national title. And for that, in his final season, yeah, Coach K is definitely a huge winner. I'm going to give a loser once again, and I feel bad doing this, but I'm going to give a loser to the officials, and I swear I don't want to. I really don't. I feel bad for these guys. But man, some of this is just tough to watch. And I told you last week, it is such a losing proposition to be a college basketball official. It is such a fast game. The athletes are flying above the rim. They are trying to keep up on every play. Meanwhile, we're sitting at home on our couch. We're getting 27 different high-definition, super slow motion replay angles to show exactly how the ref on the scene screwed up the call. It's brutal. But I'll say this. I understand getting the call right. I want the call right too. I really do. But the 5-minute replays to see if a kid threw a high elbow or a low elbow, I don't know. I just kind of check out at that point. Like, I'm done. I'm like flipping the channel. I'll come back here in a few minutes when they figure this out. This takes too long. But the officiating situation right now in college hoops is a little bit brutal. Don't get me wrong. It isn't as bad as like the NBA. It's not even close, actually, to the NBA. But it's a little tough to watch. And we saw, again, over these past 2 rounds, we saw a few calls replayed and replayed and replayed. We saw a few things that you're like, I see someone slide in and they're awarding them with the charge. I don't like some of the calls that they're making. The officiating, once again, didn't have a great week. And for that, unfortunately, we have to give the officiating in March Madness a little bit of a loser again. Okay, YouTube, be sure you go out and you check out the rest of the podcast, because this week on The Dose, we are talking some breaking news. The NFL has seen a little more movement. Want to talk about who might be the winner and loser of a blockbuster trade. Plus, we do have a few more March Madness winners and losers. And with Duke on their way to another Final Four and Mike Krzyzewski in line for another title, we take a look at one specific trait that Coach K players, well, at least a lot of them, always seem to have. So be sure you go out and you listen to the full podcast. I will leave a link here in the comments on YouTube for you. Hope you all are doing well. I will see you all next Wednesday. Have a great week.